Welcome to the REI Hacker Podcast, where we unlock the secrets of real estate success. Join us as we dive into the journeys of top investors, mentors, and industry experts. Learn from their experiences and navigate the highs and lows of the investing world. And now, let's hand it off to our host, Benson Juarez.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here today on this edition of the REI Hacker Podcast. I'm really interested in our next guest here. We happen to be part of the same mastermind, but oddly, we hadn't met yet. So I'm going to be meeting our next guest for the first time as well. His name is Marcus Jacober. He's also known as the Deed Hunter. He's a sought-after speaker, and he's an industry expert who specializes in unlocking the opportunities through the power of tax deeds and tax liens. So I can't wait to learn more about you, Marcus. So one of the first things I noticed about you is you do have an accent, which indicates that you might not be from the U.S. originally, but tell us about yourself.
Yeah, I'm from Brazil, and although I'm a Brazilian, my life wasn't always a carnival. And that's one of the reasons why I migrated to the United States in 1998 with $100 in my pocket in pursuit of the American dream.
Amazing. So you could have moved anywhere, right? You could have moved to Europe. You could have moved to the Middle East. Something about America was interesting to you. And, you know, the American dream is kind of this elusive thing. It's for a lot of people, it's not real. But what was it that attracted you to America?
Well, it was a couple of things. So first of all, it was the dollar, right? The second thing is in Brazil, when you watch movies, the most thing that we see is movies made in America. So there was a resilience right there. And I like to say that although I wasn't born in the United States, I came here as fast as I could.
There you go. So you're an action taker, right? You could have just been satisfied with the circumstances that you had, having $100 in your pocket in Brazil. And, there's some positive things there. You got some beautiful land, you got the oceans around. But
and
you
also,
wanted to come here.
I don't want to interrupt you, but also, what other place on the earth they say it is the land of opportunity? I only know one country.
There is, right?
That's US, right?
The interesting thing about that, though, is not everybody's interested in opportunity. Some people are happy just being, how they are, sitting on the couch, watching TV, being sedentary, not really setting goals or having aspirations. But there was something in you, an entrepreneurial spirit that brought you here. Were you always entrepreneurial, or did you figure that out once you came over?
No, I remember since I was a child, I always have that entrepreneur mindset. And after you live in a country where the majority of your time, energy is just to figure out how to survive, at some point you're gonna ask questions, like what can I make, right? So living in Brazil, it was almost like swimming against the current. You swim, you have this little senses of success, but then when you rest a little bit, before you know it, you're all the way back on the curve of the river. You know what I mean? So that's why coming to the United States to me was something that I always had that in my mind. And it's just to summarize, like when you get like someone that's eager and is hungry, and you come here and you have opportunity, it's almost the opposite, right? You start swimming, with the current, right? So it actually makes it a lot easier. So, and has been my story in the United States for the most part.
So have you found that the American dream is real, and the reasons why you came here in the first place are true?
Oh my God, are you kidding me? So I think like a lot of Americans need to discover this thing called American dream. So that's one of the things, right? And I think in America, for the most part, everybody, it's like what goes against Americans in US is the okay life that they have here, right? So most people don't have nothing else to compare to, right? It's almost like it's mind-boggling. I was reading an article that said something like only 15% of US citizens have passport. So if they travel abroad, if they have the chance to see what is the reality and conditions in other country, they will get a wake up call, right? And they're gonna finally realize that they are in the land of opportunity. And the way you think that way, and the way you see where you are, your context, it actually determines your actions, right? And then for the good 14 years, you know, in US, I was a W-2 employee. I was working in construction. I was working in restaurants. I cleaned houses. My last gig, I worked for a company called FedEx, FedEx. I delivered boxes for FedEx for 14 years. Today, I have a different relationship with FedEx, right? Instead of delivering boxes, I got checks in the mail. But even back then, to me, the lifestyle that I had, it was 100 times better than the one that I had in Brazil, right? But I also learned right in the beginning that it's 3 pillars for you to build wealth. So you got to have your own business. I don't know anybody that became a multimillionaire working for somebody else. You got to know about investments. You got to know how to put the money to work for you, because if you don't put the money to work for you, you're going to die working for the money. And third and foremost, it's investing in real estate, right? 75% of multimillionaires in the world, they do that. And it is a real estate play. And a lot of people like, oh, I'm not sure if that's real or not. Think about this. When was the last time, or when was the time in your life that you made the most amount of money, or you know somebody that made the most amount of money, right? Blue collar, you know, average worker people, they're gonna say, well, when I sold a property, when I look at my house and I had $400,000 worth of equity on it, right? So real estate to me is one of the most easiest way for you to make millions.
Absolutely. I completely agree. I don't want to get off of the opportunity thing here for the US. I want to spend a little bit of time on that, because I think it's important for people to hear, because you're right about people's perspectives. Like, they don't know what to compare it to. And, you know, right now there's a lot of political turmoil going on, and there's the left against the right, and the left is about half the country, right? And, and they're, looking for, higher taxes, distribution of wealth, more socialistic, communistic, Marxist kind of philosophies. What is your perspective on the differences there from, like, the ability to be, a capitalist and go and create your own opportunity, or someone who's an entrepreneur in that world, compared to what other people might believe is evil, like capitalism is evil?
Not at all. What I think is, a lot of people are the system is designed to keep people that way. I understand, like, we all have ups and downs in our lives, right? And it's good to have a system that if you are knocked down to the ground, you have something to rely on it to get back in your feet. But my thinking is that should be temporarily, right? Look, I'll give you 3 months for you to get back in a train wagon, right? And if you compare with the immigrant life, right? We come to this country, and I love America, right? I like to say that I'm not a patriot when it comes to Brazil, because patriots don't leave their country, right? So I left. I was forced to leave my country due to the economical conditions and turmoil. So I'm not patriotic in that sense towards Brazil. I'm more patriotic towards the United States. But if you think about it, even with this whole welfare, this socialism kind of things that the government needs to take care of everybody, immigrants comes to this country. They come here without knowing the language, right? With little to no money. And if you look, after 6, 7, a year, 2 years, they have a house, they have a car, they raising a family. How they can do that, and people still need to rely on the government to take care of them.
Right.
I think that the system is designed to keep people that way, almost like a puppeteers of the system. So I'll take care of you. You voted. You know how that goes. But
yeah, it creates a cycle.
Exactly. That to me is nothing better than capitalism.
Yeah.
It's and you're gonna make money according to the amount of problems and how big is the solution that you bring to the marketplace. That's it.
Yeah, and it was, I believe, capitalism, but the money markets and the way that we grew as America, which created the opportunity, which is how we became known as the land of opportunity, right? So it was the money and it was the capitalism that created that, and that's what's different than other countries.
Well, that's why people are migrating here and not to Cuba, right?
It's true. No one's swimming to Cuba,
Hey, let's do
not
this.
unless their
Everybody
boat
that's
capsizes and they're looking for land.
so let's do this. Everybody that likes socialism, let's give them one-way ticket to Cuba and let me know how that goes.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, but that's the good thing about this country too, is we have the First Amendment, and so you can say whatever you want, right? And so, if people are upset and they want to protest, they want to do those things, more power to them. But I think hearing it from somebody who has experienced both worlds, very intimately, you're a great voice for that. And so, welcome. I'm glad you're here. You've been here since 1998.
Yeah, God bless America. I love America, man. I love America. And one thing that I don't understand, like if you were born and raised in the United States and you're concerned that somebody from a third world country will come and take your job, you have a bigger problem than you think, right?
Right.
'Cause it doesn't add up. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
That's also what the system tried to portray to people. Oh, they come to take your jobs. Like, if that's your concern, you need to learn new skills and fast.
Yeah, absolutely. You're so right about that. So you came here in 1998 and you needed to create some liquidity, right? So you could eventually start to invest. And so you worked for
Mhm.
FedEx and you did some other jobs. I think you said you worked at a restaurant or you owned a restaurant at one point.
Yeah. So check this out. A
Yeah.
year and a half after I arrived in the United States with $100 in my pocket, I owned my own restaurant. I had a business with 13 employees. And by the
That's
way, they're the
amazing.
ones who taught me English because I didn't even know how to talk to them. Isn't that something? Where else in the world can you do that?
I don't know. I think it's phenomenal, and it just proves that this path that you took is one that can work, but it takes a unique person to do that, right? I don't know that everyone that came here could start a business that quickly, but I think it was your entrepreneurial spirit that helped guide you and drive you to look for more and not just go get a regular job, right? Like you're like you wanted more.
Yeah, I remember coming here and I thought like my very first job, I think it was making $150 a week, right? I was working in construction and I didn't know anything about constructions because I didn't have a construction background. And basically, I was going to the job site just carrying lumber to other guys, right? To other carpenters. And I remember when I got here, one of my dreams was to make $800. It was like the day or the week that I make $800, I'm gonna be a millionaire, right?
Right.
That was my goal, and I believe like right off the get go. So I got my first job, $150 a week, and then when I had a job that was making 150, I was looking for one that would pay me 200, right? So I got to a job that was making 200. Now I'm looking for one that pay me 250, and when I
Yep.
got one for 250, I'm looking for one that can pay me 300. And I kept doing that, and more importantly, I asked myself the question, what kind of trait do I need to learn in order to be valuable that much to the marketplace? A lot of people, they want to make more, but they don't want to work on themselves and become valuable to the marketplace.
Right.
Nowadays, I have people that pay me $5,000 an hour to do a consulting call and tell them how they can improve their bottom line and add an extra $1 million on their real estate business. But what is the difference between now than the guy that arrived in 1998 that was getting paid $300 a week? It's just the contribution and how valuable I became to the marketplace. And the marketplace always, that's capitalism, right? The marketplace always going to reward you based
Mhm.
on the size of the contribution and the problem that you solved on the marketplace. Would you
Absolutely.
pay $5,000 to figure out how you're going to add another $1 million to your bottom line?
Oh,
Right.
absolutely.
So that's the notion. So most importantly, so I think number one, people need to have a goal, right? Everybody goes to a dead end job that they already know is a dead end, and they're just there just to try and make ends meet. And you have to have a change in your mindset, right? So there's more out there. So why not you? Why not you making $1 million? Right? Why are you the one going to work in somebody else's business and you don't have people come to work for you in your business? Right? That comes back to the programming. So we are being programmed as a child. So you got to have that wake up moment where you say, wait a minute, there's more to life than this. Number one. Number two, you got to have a vision. You got to have a goal, right? So if I didn't have the goal to make $800, I will still be working as a construction worker. You know what I mean? Because that put me on the path of what else is out there, right? And then the third thing is you have to go and figure it out. What is the traits that you need to learn and how you need to grow as a person in order for you to achieve that? Because your financial situation right now is equivalent as your mindset. Your money is always going to be in the same level as your mindset. Always. Don't believe a word that I'm saying. Let's test this out. Have you heard, if you Google it, people that won the lottery, and you're going to see that 99% of them, after 5 years, they're in the worst financial situation in the world prior to win the lottery. Why is that? Because here's who you are as a person. Here's your financial situation. You win the lottery, your money situation goes this high. But if you don't work in yourself, what's going to happen? The money always going to come back down to you. You see that with athletes, right? They make huge amount of money, and then after 15, 20, 30 years, they all broke. Why? Because they didn't work in themselves. So if that's true, so if my financial situation is here, if I start working on myself, if I start to learn new things, if I start to mastering new traits, and I'm going to start growing as a person, the money has no other option than meet you there. And we all pursued money, but we don't pursue getting better.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing is that it takes work to improve yourself as well. And a lot of people just don't have what it takes to put in the extra work, because that extra work typically isn't during the day when you're doing your 9 to 5. Like, you're at this dead end job, and then you come home from a long day's work, you're tired, you're hungry, you need to spend your time with your
But everything
family.
takes work, brother. That's what people need to realize. Being 40, 50 years on a dead end job and waking up, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, like myself, 4:30, and looking at 12, 13-hour day work, that's a lot of work. So you have to choose what kind of work are you going to do. So you're going to choose a work that on a short period of time is going to be able to give you freedom. And by the way, a lot of people think that in order for them to be financially free, they need to make millions and millions of dollars. And that's far from the truth. Because think about this, 90% of Americans made less than $6,000 a month, right? $6,000 a month. So once you find, and that's your number dictate the house that you live in, the clothes that you wear, how many times you goes on vacation, what food you buy. If you go to the restaurant and you pick the food that you're gonna eat based on the column on the right versus the column on the left, I live that life.
Oh yeah.
The price would dictate what I'm gonna order, right? So your number dictates that. So, and nowadays we are in the best era for human society to make money. There's never been a great area than this one, right? You see kids flying a private jet, and it's not their dad is private jets. So the internet came to give that opportunity, to democratize the opportunity to everybody, right? That's hundreds and hundreds of strategies and things out there that you can do on the side to raise that. But think about this. as soon as you figure out something that's going to give you a cash flow of equivalent what you make today, you're already financially free. You're not a millionaire, right? You're not a billionaire. Maybe you're not rich by any means. You have the same lifestyle that you have now, but I think you might like it, because if you didn't like that lifestyle, you would have a different one, right? And you're already financially free. So you don't have to go to the data end job on Monday. Oh, but I like what I do. BS. You don't like what you do. No, how can you say that? Did Hunter, you don't know me. All right, let's do a test. If no money was involved and we take care of all your food and lodging and all that, would you show up to work in what you do on Monday? 99% of people is like, no, I want to do something else. So you don't like what you do. You learn how to tolerate, which is different.
Yeah, we compromise, right? We're taught to compromise, and we get comfortable too, right? There's the comfortability, and that you mentioned that earlier about the people in the US, Americans, they're comfortable, right? Like we don't know when it's really bad, and people can create their own realities about what's good and what is bad. But that also goes for the other side, right? Like you create your own reality about, okay, well, what's possible? And that's why you talked about setting goals. Like, where do you want to be in 5, 10, 20 years? And are you willing to put in the work, and also just change some small things? Like you first started out with saying, okay, first you need to be your own boss. You have to have a business, and then you have to take that money and invest it, right? And leverage that cash. And then, real estate is one of those vehicles that you can invest in. So it's just about changing some things.
So watch this. Do you live in a house or you live in an apartment?
House.
Right? Who puts the trash in the curb in your house?
I do.
You do. Do you live in a subdivision? How many homes average in your subdivision?
Yeah, it's a subdivision. There's probably 500 houses.
500 houses. Okay. How many times your wife, I believe you're married, but how many times perhaps your wife told you, honey, before you go, don't forget the trash? How many times have you forgot to put the trash out?
I'm not married.
Or you're not married. Okay.
But no, it's almost automatic. Like it's just part of like what happens every
But have you forgot sometimes?
Thursday night. Yeah, sometimes. Or I miss the days where it's like a holiday and I put it out instead.
Yeah, but how many days you feel like, oh my God, I don't want to go and put the trash out? Or maybe it's raining, maybe it's snowing, right? So it happens. But watch this. What if I go and I tell you this? Benson, give me $2 a week, and I'll come to your house and I put the trash out. It could be raining, it could be snowing, it could be thunderstorm. I'll come for $2. I'll put the trash out. Would you pay me $2 a week for me to put your trash outside?
Yeah. Why not?
Okay. So you have 500 houses. You have 500 houses in your subdivision. I can make in one day $1,000. But then the next day there's the other subdivision, right? And I can make another $1,000 on the other subdivision. See, like people don't think that way,
right?
And I'm pretty sure next time you look at your trash, you're gonna remember to do that.
I'm gonna have to look in the phone book. I'm gonna have to Google to see who does internet or who does trash pickups, right?
And then how long is it gonna take for me to just put the cans out for 500 houses? How long is it gonna take? 2-3 hours, and then 2-3 hours to put back in the driveway, back where I found it. You see, like how many kids can I hire for $10-15 an hour to go put the trash out? We got a team of 3 or 4 guys. We knocked that out like $1,000 a day. How many am I gonna pay them? That's the problem. A lot of people want to be the ones who's gonna get paid $10 an hour to go work for me, than the ones who's knocking on the door and say, hey, pay me $2 and I'll take care of the trash.
Right.
There's so many ways to make money out there that's not even funny.
Oh yeah, it is. It's a whole paradigm shift, but some people just aren't wired that way, right? Like I grew up in a household where my dad was a police officer for 33 years. My mom was a bank teller. So there wasn't any entrepreneurial stuff being talked about at dinner, but somehow I caught the bug when I was young and I figured out my money making hack was going to be slinging newspapers. So 12 years
See that?
old, I was out doing newspapers, right? And then I was like giving really good service, and then I could like earn bigger tips. And then I took over another guy's paper out and I hired one of my friends at a discount. So I was getting arbitrage there, and I was learning delegation and responsibility and self accountability and all that. Those things were, I was learning those at an early age. But there was only, that one paper out, and then the other one I got. No one else could do it but me. So I had the market cornered, right? So if there's
Uh-huh.
not everybody could do that. And then I passed it on to my brother when I went to college, and then he did it. So there is this whole kind of like, where do you learn this stuff from? But where did you learn the three pillars? Like, did you read about it? Did someone teach
So
it
I
to you?
read, so yeah, so yes, very good. So I started, I read a book called Rich Dad Poor Dad, right? I think
Yep.
how many people already read the book? Like, so that's a common factor for a lot of us, and
Yeah.
that's when I started learning that you got to have your own business. You got to know how to work with the financials, and the one thing that I picked it up was the real estate, and I started investing in real estate in 2000, right?
Mhm.
I started working for FedEx in 2000. Okay, so I had my restaurant from 1999 to 2001. Okay, then I moved to Florida. I went to work for FedEx because I thought, this is like owning a restaurant is very slavery, and I was very young. I was working, every holiday I was working, and my friends were having great time. I was like, I'm gonna find another way to make. I love to cook, but I'm gonna find another way to make money. So I ended up buying a FedEx route. I became a contractor for FedEx. Moved to Florida. When I first got to US, I was living in New Jersey. So I moved to Florida, and I started investing in real estate the conventional way, the rich dad poor dad way.
Right.
From 2000 to 2004, I had about 12 properties. I bought 12 properties.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And then a guy gave me a book called The 16% Solution. And they were like, Marcos, you need to read this book. It talks about the two oldest form of investment that ever exist in the United States. You got to read it. So I got the book. I think I still have it. So I was right here. So I got the book. I still have it. So I got the book, and I went over, and there was no pictures in the book. I was like, this must be a very boring book, right? I don't like to read, by the way. And today I pay a VA $300 a month. All she has to do is read a book a week, put it in a PowerPoint presentation, and deliver that to me, right? So I don't like to read, but I know I need to get the information.
Right.
So I parked this book in my office, and this book was there for 5 years. I kept doing what I was doing from 2004. Do you remember what happened 2007, 2008?
Yeah, the market crashed.
You lost money in
The
2007?
Great Recession. I did. I lost my ass.
Yeah, so I foreclosed. So I had 17 properties at the time. I foreclosed in 16 of them. Have to move to Texas. I was already retired from FedEx. I was doing real estate. I have been doing real estate for the past 6 months, full time. Have to move to Texas. Went back to work for FedEx. Right, that's what I did from 2007 to 2014. But 5 years later, around 2008, 2009, that's when I was cleaning my office, and I clean my office more often than every 5 years. Okay, in case you were keeping track of this stuff. So I found the book, and I decided to read it. And I thought at the time that my real estate career has been ended because I didn't have credit, right? Tried to foreclose in 16 properties, and I didn't have any money, right? And I was like, I can't do real estate anymore. So I read the book, and then I learned about tax deeds. So I was living in tax liens and tax deeds. So I was living in Texas, Montgomery County, close to Houston. I went to my local county. I found out a list of they had at the time about 2,000 properties that have been offered to auction, and nobody bought it, and they were just sitting in the county. I started doing my research, and I remember I bought a piece of land, lot, and for I think it was $31.28, and I ended up selling in the same day for $5,500. So that was like, right?
Yeah.
And after that, 15 years has gone by. I bought and sold over 4,500 properties in my career. My best case scenario was a property that I paid $6,342.79 and sold for $1.5 million.
Wow.
So, so that's this. So I learned this smart daddy strategy.
I love it. And so why those two, well, the tax strategy, like it's tax deeds and tax liens, but they're the same strategy basically, right?
No,
How did you choose that?
not necessarily. They're not the same strategy at all.
Okay.
So you have half of the. So picture the map of the United States, right? And then half of the states they do tax liens, and the other half they do tax deeds. So what is the difference between them? Tax liens is like this. Let's say you own a house that's worth $200,000, and you have a mortgage of $160,000, and you have to pay your property taxes $2,000 a year. Okay. The reason why the county collects the property taxes is because the county used that money to provide all the services to the population: schools, firemen, police, roads, libraries, you name it. It's funded by property taxes. And on average, every county, you have about 30 to 40% of people that don't pay their taxes on time. So the county has always a cash flow problem. And throughout the years, that's becomes way, worse, because the counties are facing a rise on the operational cost, but they cannot raise taxes in the same speed, right? So what the county do when you don't pay your property taxes, the county going to put a lien on the property. So let's pretend that we talk about a tax lien state. County's going to put a lien on the property. That doesn't solve the county problems, because the county problem is cash flow. So the county now is going to offer that tax lien to investors like you and me. In most of the states that do tax liens, you buy that tax lien, you invest. So basically, I'm going to go to the county and say, hey, here's $2,000 for the property taxes of this property. The county is going to give me a certificate. This certificate transferred to me two rights. Right number one, I can collect any interest or penalty. And right number two, in case of non-payment, I can keep the house. The house is a collateral for my investment. So your $200,000 house is a collateral for my $2,000 investment. And now, once I buy the lien and the county transferred those rights to me, the county is going to inform you, is going to notify the bank and say, hey, something has happened here. A deed hunter bought your tax lien. Now you guys have 12 months to pay it. So the percentage that I'm gonna receive, it varies per state. So Colorado, for example, pays 8%, right? Florida pays 18%. Illinois pays 36%. Texas, you can make 50% a year. And that's guaranteed by law, right? It's guaranteed by law. So after I do that, there's only two scenarios. You come forward and you pay the taxes. The county is going to say, in this case, 25%, and say, look, you have to pay a 25% penalty. So you're going to write a check for $2,500. In 4 days, the county is going to send me the money in the mail, the $2,500. So $2,000 for my initial investment, and $500 was my 25% penalty. Scenario number one. Scenario number two, you don't show up and you don't pay the taxes. Then what happens if you don't pay the taxes? I'm going to call the county, going to say, Mr. County, I have a tax lien number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I haven't got paid. I want to exercise my second right. So what is my second right now? My second right is I'm going to foreclose on your property, and I get to keep your property free and clear. And the mortgage is going to be wiped out.
The mortgage is wiped out.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
So then the mortgage just has to take that as a loss, the mortgage or the lender?
Yes. 100%.
So there's not a redemption process where you have to pay off the first lien to be able to get the remaining equity. Like you get all the value.
You get the property free and clear, because American law is based on the English common law. In the English, in the English common law, the queen and the king has to get paid first. So everything below the county, all the liens below the county, because when the county registers a lien, records a lien, the county becomes the first lien holder, and everything else is secondary. So remember that the county notifies you and notifies the bank and tells everybody, hey, if you want to protect your interest in the property, you have to pay the taxes.
Right.
If they don't do so, and you exercise your right, they lose.
Is that what I've heard before called like a super lien?
It's the first time I'm hearing that terminology, but it's very accurate. So the county lien trumps everything else. The only lien that might survive is
Like
the
federal
lien
taxes.
No, not even federal taxes, like the IRS.
Yeah.
The IRS has 120 days to protect their interest against the property. Otherwise, that lien, it's also wiped out.
Mm.
Right? The only lien that's going to survive is the lien from the county itself.
Interesting.
If they like a nuisance lien or a code enforcement lien, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you invest in tax lien, there's only two scenarios. You're either going to get the money plus interest or the property. Now, on the other hand, on the tax deed sales county, it's similar process, but the county is going to put a lien on the property and it's going to start a foreclosure process, right? And if the homeowner or the bank or anybody doesn't pay it into then the county is going to auction the property to the highest bidder, right? The interesting thing is, I've been in over 1,200 live auctions in my career, and I have been on places where on the same room you have the bank foreclosure auction and the tax foreclosure auction. On the bank foreclosure auction, you see 10 properties and 100 investors. Over here, you see 100 properties and 10 investors. And one doesn't know what the other one is doing. And why is that? Would you like to know why?
I would.
Ignorance. Lack of information. They don't know.
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know.
Because if you call your local county and say, hey, I would like to know anything about this tax deed or tax lien sale, they're going to say, well, we can give you any legal advice. Go talk to a lawyer. Not even the county employees knows how that works. And what is the difference between the foreclosure sale and the county sale? Very, very simple. On the foreclosure sale, banks hire a private company, an auctioneer, auction.com, to run the auction. The auctioneer makes more money based on how high the bids are going to go. That's an incentive.
Right.
So the county, the statute, check this out. Let's say your house is worth $200,000. You owe $2,000 in taxes, and I go to the auction and I pay for your property $100,000. Is that a good deal or that's a bad deal?
Like a decent deal.
A decent deal, right?
Yeah.
The county can only keep the $2,000 out of the $100,000 that I pay. So there's no financial incentive from the county to promote this, to educate investors, to get people to know. And you know what is the result on that? I'll tell you what's the result. We have 3,144 counties in US, and every county holds on average 5,000 properties that has been offered on previous auctions, and nobody bought it. And if you do the math, it's about 11.5 million properties city and the county books waiting for someone to pay the back taxes, and the county would hand you a deed of the property.
Interesting. So in your perspective, what's better to do? Do you only invest in tax lien states or tax deed states? Because it seems like I'd rather be assured of like either getting the property or getting the interest rather than the alternative.
So if you don't like, most people don't like real estate. Most people are nervous to own a piece of property in a different state, right? Or in a different county or in a different city. If that's your thing, go buy tax liens. Write checks to the county. Yesterday, I kid you not, I just got paid for one tax lien that I bought 2 years ago. I invest $689, and I made $500 worth of interest on that tax lien alone. My job was just to write the county a check,
Right.
right? So if you don't like the real estate play, just do that. You can buy $200,000 worth of tax lien in an hour and a half. Done. Once you get paid, you go and buy another one, and you get the compounding working in your favor.
Right.
Right. Now, if you like real estate, right, and some of the deals, my average ROI per year is about 100 and 130% if I do houses, and if I do lots, land, it's way higher than that. So why am I gonna settle for 18% on a tax lien when I can do the real estate play? Right? And the difference between tax liens and deeds, tax liens, you're not buying the property, you're buying the debt, and you have the property as a collateral. And the tax deed, you're already buying the property. And as you are a real estate investor, so what is the number one thing that generates a real estate deal? The genesis.
Margins. So
Leads. Without leads, there's no
okay.
deal. Right? So you can take wholesale, you can take any real estate strategy. Without a lead, there's no deal. And leads cost a lot of money. Or you're going to have, or a lot of saliva, because you're going to have to leak a lot of envelopes to send people letters, right? So it takes a lot of work, time, energy, and money. But what most real estate investors don't realize is that we have 11.5 million leads sitting in the county books. And all I have to do, I go and I look at those leads, I underwrite the deal, and I don't have to convince the county to sell me the property. I'm always working with a motivated seller. And then, and you know what's funny? They always willing to accept less than what's owed.
Right. And that's less than what's owed on just the tax default.
Less than what's owed on the tax default, which is perhaps 3 to 5% of the market value of the property.
Right.
And then you might say, "But Marcos, the government's stupid." Well, we already know that. But why they don't call like a Remax or a Coldwell back and sell the property on the market? They can't.
They don't own it.
It's against the law.
Hmm.
It's a conflict of interest. They can only sell the property to the highest bidder. And guess what? And if you were the only bidder,
You get a pretty good deal.
there you go.
Are there minimum requirements on those? Is the minimum just whatever the tax amount is? That's basically the minimum.
That's what it is. But a lot of counties they are willing to accept less than that.
Right.
So let me give an example. If you go to Shelby County Land Bank, and Shelby County is the city of Memphis, right? Tennessee. And you go there, and I was talking to the director of the land bank, and I say, "Hey, why did you are selling this piece of land, right? It's a quarter acre lot in the middle of the city, not in the middle of nowhere, but in the middle of the city. That's worth about $15,000. Why do you guys asking $50 for that?" And he was like, "We've been having this we've been holding this property for 3 to 5 years, so we might as well just get rid of it." That's government.
Wow.
Because for the county it becomes a liability. And I was like, "What? How'd you come up with the $50 price?" Like, this time, no, we just want to get rid of it. Because once you buy the property, then the county can do what the county is supposed to do, which is collect taxes.
Yeah.
County is not in a real estate business. County is in the business of collecting taxes. That's it.
Interesting. So which markets do you like then? So you're not into the tax liens as much as you are into the tax deeds. You mentioned Tennessee as one of the markets you like. What else?
I made my fortune in no more than 12 counties. So
Okay.
keep in mind, there's 3,144 counties in US, right? I started my career in Texas, Florida, then I did stuff in Tennessee, right? Nowadays I buy stuff as far as U.S. Virgin Island.
Mm.
By the way, that's going to be an auction in U.S. Virgin Island in 2 weeks from now. It's about 175 properties, and that's the first time they had auction since, like, the last one was about 5 years ago. So I'm more active in different markets, right? Because I run one of the biggest communities of tax lien investors in U.S. We are about 3,000 deed hunters. So I'm always creating content. I'm always creating, some type of material for them. I'm always like, I'm the person who goes and try it out first, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I like a lot Texas. I like Florida. We are doing some great deals in Ohio. Ohio now is pretty hot. Indiana, Indiana is a tax lien state. But when you buy the tax lien in Indiana, there's a special sale we call special commissioner sales. You buy a tax lien in Indiana, and the life of that tax lien is only 120 days. So if they're going to redeem, you can make 20% in 120 days, or you're going to get the property. But make no mistake, you can also get the property through the tax lien. Would you like to know how? Very simple. Remember I told you that every time there is a tax lien or a tax deed sale, we have a lot of liens and deeds, they're leftovers, right? If you go to a county, there's tax lien county, and let's say that state has 2-year redemption period, right? And you find a tax lien that's more than 2 years old in the list, you pay the tax lien, and you're already gonna go and execute and become the owner of the property. Because the redemption period, it starts at the day that they first offer the tax lien, not when you buy it.
I like that. So I'm in Colorado. This is a tax lien state, right? And it sounds like it's a low interest rate.
I'll
Low
tell you,
interest rate too.
Colorado is lousy. They in Colorado they pay you 8%, and you have to wait 3 years, right? The redemption period is 3 years. However, you can look at lists in Colorado, and as long as you buy tax liens that are 3 years and older, you get the possession of the property. The property is yours.
So that's the key there. Okay.
But what if you can do this anywhere, from anywhere, right?
Yeah.
So
it sounds like you could.
Yeah, I just moved to Puerto Rico 4 years ago, and I still have my operation going. And I can do this from Puerto Rico. I don't have to be in the United States to do that. As a matter of fact, we have deed hunters that live in Europe, Australia, Japan, and they're buying, investing in US.
So that's the acquisition strategy. So you got leads, and then you acquire the property. What is your typical exit strategy? Are you keeping these as rentals? Do you wholesale them? You just sell them outright?
My very first goal is to sell the property as is within 45 days. I'm the guy who provides properties to flippers, basically. Because I learned right off, not in the beginning, because in the beginning I was the guy that want to fix the properties, right? And then I realized that there's something called ROI, but there's something even more important called velocity. So it's how fast you can do the deal, right? Flippers, the reason why guys want to flip, it only has one explanation, is because they don't know how to get properties at dip discounts. If you go to the foreclosure and auctions, a flipper works on a margin of 35%, 30%. That's where they at, right? And because it's not, they have to go through a lot of leads to get the deal. They have a tendency to try to milk that cow as much as they can. So they're gonna hold on to the property, they're gonna fix it up, they're gonna do all that stuff. I don't have any problems to sell you a home that I bought yesterday at the county list or at the county auction, because when I turn around, there's another 5,000.
Right.
Make sense? So to me, hey, here you go. Here it is. It's yours.
So are you selling it retail typically, or wholesaling it? Because in 45 days, if you price it right, you could put it right on the MLS,
Yes. So if the house needs to be it's market, ready, then I put an MLS and sell it. No
Hmm.
problem. But if the property needs any type of renovation, I might as well, and I have margin, I might as well just sell it to you and you do the flip.
Right.
And I'll make 20, 35% in 30 days, 40 days. I don't have
Yeah.
to be tied up with the project for that long. So imagine, because when you do flips, there's also a bottleneck, right? So how many flips can you run at the same time? You know what I'm
At the
saying?
most, it's one or two if you're
There
lucky.
you go. So, and I can sell in 1 week, I can buy and sell about 10, 15, 20, 40 homes,
Yeah.
right? So mainly because I have an infinite amount of leads and I don't have to be on the phone convincing people to sell me the property. Because when you're gonna pursue leads, right? You either gonna have to qualify the seller and you have to qualify the deal, right? The reason why, let's take wholesale for example, great strategy, right? I'm not trying to portray that what I do is better than anything else. To me, it's just another tool on your toolbox, right? But if you're gonna go down to the wholesale strategy, okay? So let's take that for example. The reason why you have 2,000 leads, you close 10 deals, is because you have to qualify the seller and you have to qualify the deal. A lot of times you qualify the seller, they want to sell, but the deal, there's no money in the deal. The deal is upside down, mainly because a lot of times you're not going to get rid of all the mortgage.
Hmm.
The biggest advantage of tax liens and tax deeds, we don't deal with the mortgage. The property could go upside down to the tax sale, and once you buy it, it's not upside down anymore because you don't have to worry about the mortgage. The mortgage is wiped out. That's a big piece of it, right?
Right.
And a lot of times you qualify the deal, there's money to be made, but the seller isn't stupid enough to let the property go under the market value so you can make money. That's why out
Yeah.
of the 2,000 leads, you want to qualify 10, 12, maybe. And how
Right.
many hours on the phone? Crunching numbers and doing all that. I don't have to do all that. So
Yeah.
my acquisition, it's like I eliminate 90% of the hassle on the acquisition. Plus, I have unlimited supply of properties. Do you know how many properties goes to the tax auction on a year base? About 1.4 million.
Mm.
And this thing only gonna end when people pay their bills on time. Which
Which never will happen. So there's always going to be these leads, right? So when I look at this strategy, I think obviously it sounds really viable. But a lot of people start off in wholesaler because they're cash poor and they need to work in deals where they don't have any out of pocket cash, right? So this strategy here, it sounds like you're going to need a little bit of liquidity to be able to afford to buy these things, right? And so you either have that already, or maybe you leverage other people's money.
That's true, but also let me throw you another curveball that's a lot of investors, for the most part, they ignore, right? Remember when I started, Mark? When I started, I didn't have any money,
Hmm.
I didn't have any credit, and I bought a piece of land for $31 and turned around and sold it for 5,000,
Right.
right? And that piece of land was worth $10,000. So how difficult it is for you to sell something for half what's worth? Maybe it's not
No, it's not hard
not
at
much,
all.
right? So if I went to the county and there was about 2,000 properties on the list, right? So if I go to the county with $31 or $50 or $200, right? And I buy a piece of land and I go and sell it for $2,000, right? So I bought a piece of land for 200, right? Very, very unsexy, right? Not sexy at all, right? Because a lot of investors, they don't like to deal with land, right? So, but if I go to the county and I buy a piece of land I have no money, okay? So I go to the county, I buy a piece of land for $200, and then I sell it for $4,000. And usually I put an ad on Facebook Marketplace, property for sale by owner, right? Finance available. Or let's say that lot has a neighbor on the right and has a neighbor on the left, and I go and knock on the door or send them a letter, say, hey, would you like to buy this property here? So here's what you do. I want you to have it, right? It's worth $5,000. I'll sell you for $3,000, or you just give me $200 down, and I can finance this to you for 3 years, and you send me $250 a month. So what just happened? Or let's say you got $400 down. So you bought one land for $200. You just sold, finance. You got $400 down payment. Now you can go and buy two. Now you sell 2. Now you have 4. You sell 4, you have 8. 8, you have 16. 16, you have 32. You see what I'm saying?
So you're always leveling up.
There we go. And then you have a cash flow, a real cash flow. Not the one that Robert Kiyosaki talks in his book. A real cash flow of $200, $300 per property that you don't have to worry about fixing it, taking care of the air because everybody talks about this cash flow game, and that's why I tried it, and I bought and sold over 4,500 properties. I have 0 properties for rent. Besides two commercial properties, I have 0 single family home for rent. And the reason behind is you make $400, $500, $600 cash flow, but at the end of the year, if your AC goes out, there you go, your year of profit down the drain.
Yeah.
Make sense? So now if I sell lots in land owner finance, I'm the bank. What you gonna do with the piece of land? You're gonna take with you? You're gonna cut the trees? There's no risk on that thing, and I love land, and that's how I started. And yes, the difference between that and wholesale is because technically wholesale you don't need to have money,
right?
But you do have to advertise. Some way, shape, and form, you're gonna have to put money. And I know wholesalers, everybody that talks the big game as far as wholesale, they're doing that because they're putting a lot of marketing dollars out there. And I have friends that they ad spend is about $50,000, $100,000 a month, so they can make $1 million, $2 million, $3 million a year, right? So the only difference is I have to be cash upfront to pay for the property. Other strategies, they have to be cash upfront to do the marketing.
Yeah.
Right. But you nail the coffin on the head, because when you said you can leverage other people's money. So I have a lot of investors that partnered up with me, because the biggest problem that I have every day when I wake up, and I have a team of 50 VAs doing research for me. I research about 25,000 properties a month. Is that I find more opportunities than money. And I don't care how much money you have, how much money I have, how much money all your listeners have. We can never buy everything that's out there, because we're going to need a tune of about $300 billion to buy all the properties that are sitting in the county books today.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing. And so you're teaching this strategy to people, right, in your community. You said you have about 3,000 people that are working with you, and you're teaching them your strategies. You guys get together and talk, maybe like limiting beliefs and all these different kinds of things that get them to move, right? So what's the success like within the group? Are people taking action? Are they really grabbing this opportunity and running with it?
I'll tell you, I have been trying to teach this since 2012. Okay. And for the most part, I got nowhere, because back in the days, my goal was to sell courses. My goal was to teach people how to do this, because I knew how that transformed my life. It took me 4 years to make my first million. Now in the community, people it's way less than that. But for the most part of my career, I was chasing, I'm going to sell a course. I'm going to sell a course. I'm going to sell a course. And then I was like, you know what? That's not where my heart should be. I don't need to sell courses to make a living. I do enough with my own deals, and I still do deals. I bought about $500,000 worth of property last week in Florida. And I heard, and back in the days when I had a course, the success rate was about 10%. And that's across the board. That's what you see on the industry, 10%, right? And a lot of times the mentors, they always blame on the people. And a lot of times, it doesn't work because they don't put the effort, they don't put the energy in, and I got it. But then I got me asking a question, and there was a guy that inspired me to ask that question. His name is Tony Robbins. You probably heard of him. I'm a huge Tony guy. And Tony says something very interesting. Tony says, hey, change the quality of your questions and you change your life. And then I start asking me a different question. I say, if it was possible to raise the success rate on this, instead of just being content with the industry standard, if it was possible to do that, what needed to be done? And then I had a lot of conclusions. One of them was I need to stop selling courses. And there was another guy named Gary Vee that talks a lot about that. Just pour, just serve, and you're gonna see what's gonna happen. And I started this movement, the Deed Hunter movement, in 2019. Okay, end of 2019, with only one goal: to build the arm of Deed Hunter, so we're gonna dominate this space. Okay. And I was like, first thing I did, I stopped selling courses. And what I used to do as a webinar, and you're probably familiar with that those 45 minutes webinar, 90 minute webinar, where we just talk about the strategy. And if you want to know more, buy my course. I got rid of that stuff. And now I do a masterclass. And my masterclass could last anywhere from, I promise 2 hours, but it lasts minimum 4. Because I tell you what it is, how to do it, how to find the properties, how to research it, and how to eliminate 98% of the risk for free. Done. That's my gift to you. Okay? And you're going to receive all the manuals, all this stuff. It's done. Then I'm going to say, now you have two options. You can do it on your own. I already gave you all this information that you need. Or we can do it together. And I'll invite you to go to an expedition where I'm going to do it with you live. Right? And then for that, it's also free. We're going to do this either on the span of 2 weeks where you do 1 hour a day, or we're going to get on a weekend about 8 hours, and I'm going to do it with you. So after I was able to change my methodology, 87% of people that goes through the expedition, they buy their first property. And the only thing I ask is you have to put a deposit, because I want to make sure you're going to show up. So when you finish the expedition and you buy your first property, I'll refund you your deposit. I just want to make sure you show up. If you don't show up, I don't refund you your deposit.
Right.
So that got people very engaged and doing what they're supposed to do. Right. And now my success rate within the expedition is about 87%.
That's amazing that you were able to figure that out, because all the gurus out there are selling courses the old fashioned way. And they're getting those low success rates, like you said, 10% or less. And they're probably not selling as much either, right? Because of the way they're selling it.
Yeah, but there's an interesting thing, man, when you're not afraid to just give.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Do you know a guy named Bradley?
Who?
Bradley.
No.
Bradley. He's a huge influencer out of Vegas. He runs a podcast called Dropping Bombs, right?
Okay.
So I was talking to Bradley, and Bradley was like, Marcos, you stupid. Why do you do this training live? You just say the same shit over and over again. Just record this stuff, right? I was like, yeah, but let me tell you something, Brad, with all due respect. If I'm not willing to be in front of people, hearing them, connecting with them, and helping them live, And if that's a burden for me, I should be doing something else. Like I should not be wearing this badge of a mentor if my way of doing it is just through video, and if you want to talk to me in person, it's going to cost you $40,000, right? So the way I figured this out, and that's how we are able to build this community, right? It's a movement. The Deed Hunter is a movement of 3,000 students and little bit more than 48 months, is because I'm willing to show up, and I'm willing to pour 95% of me right in the beginning. That's when students need it the most, right? A lot of guys, they have this backwards. To me, is mainly because, and I don't want to batch anybody out, right? But the old style of how everybody does that way, right? So they're like, when the students needs the most is in the beginning. Once I held your hand and I got you through your first deal, game over. You're never gonna quit.
Yep.
Make sense?
Yeah, you get proof of concept, right? That's
it.
for most people. They just want to know that it can be done. Has
They're
anyone
never
ever
gonna
done this
quit.
before, right? And then once they
Yes.
prove it to themselves that they can be done, then they get addicted because they're like, oh my God, this works. Now I just have to repeat the process.
And you know what's interesting? The subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between a $2 million property and a $200 property.
Hmm.
The conscious mind do. The subconscious mind don't. The subconscious mind only register you were able to do it or you didn't do it.
Right.
Right? And what is the difference between a $200 property and a $2 million property? Just a couple of zeros.
Yeah.
Right? But the process of doing it is the same. It doesn't change. But imagine when you buy a property for $200 and you can sell for $2,000. You're not rich. You're not multimillionaire. You're not gonna buy your Ferrari, but you're like, oh my God, what if I do 10 of this? What if I do 100 of this? What if I do 200?
Or what if I do $1 million property?
There you
Right.
go.
You just focus
Or
on a different
I can't wait
market.
to get a $1 million property, right?
You move out of Ohio and you go to Florida, right? Like you start to level up your thinking on where those high leverage activities at, right?
But the number one thing that people have is fear. It's fear of failing, right?
Yeah.
So it's much people can conceive and can grasp, hey, I can buy a $200 property, then I can do $1 million deal. And I know it's just inevitable, right? When you do this, you're gonna do the $1 million deal. But I think right off the get-go, they feel more comfortable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they feel more comfortable because I'm there with them, right off the get-go, and they feel more comfortable because they can play with as low as $50.
That's pretty amazing.
And then,
So for everybody who's listening here, because I bet you people are getting amped about this potential, opportunity out there with tax deeds and tax liens. When's your next masterclass? Like, how can people get involved with you and learn this process?
okay, great. You guys can start first. Follow my Instagram at the Deed Hunter World, right? That's my Instagram at the Deed Hunter World. You guys can send me an email, marcos@deedhunter.com. Okay. And just be tuned on Instagram. We often put it out there when it's going to be the next masterclass. So, and we do that almost like every quarter because I'm training you guys live. So
Right.
the masterclass is live, the expedition is live, and we do it together. And that's how I like to roll. Even though it's kind of hard for me because I have a community. I have 3 communities, right? I have a Portuguese speaking community, I have a Spanish speaking community, and an English Spanish community. So
Yeah, you're busy.
yes, and it's the work times 3.
But I mean, what I get from you though is you like doing this. Like I can tell you
love it.
enjoy doing this.
I
You're
love teaching it.
passionate about the lead source and the real estate and the business and helping people. and it sounds like you really are pouring into your community and helping them and just people who are interested. And I got to believe it's pretty darn entertaining too. Like I would sit there and listen to you for 4 hours talk. I mean, it sounds fun to me.
No, no,
So
no, no. Check this out. I learned from Tony, for all the trainers that are listening out there. I learned a very interesting concept from Tony. And the concept is you should not thinking about having students. You should have raving fans,
mm,
right? And how do you have raving fans? It's showing up 95% or 150% right up front, right off the get-go, right?
yeah,
I systematize my tax deed and tax lien business very well. And to be honest, it became just like the law of familiarity just kick in. And to me, is not excited closing deals anymore because that's something that happens, constantly. Okay.
right.
And I believe if I haven't found my purpose of pouring and helping and uplifting other folks, maybe I would have killed myself. Maybe I would have went to drugs or alcohol. That's what a lot of successful people go to try to fill that void, right?
Mhm.
So I got more excited when the student buy a property for $200 and sell for 2,000 than if the last $200,000 that I made on my last deal. You know what I mean?
Right.
That gets me more excited, more juiced up, and allows me to meet, interesting figures like yourself to be part. It's almost like the sense of a legacy. You know what I mean? And now we start doing things with kids as well. I was like, if this strategy is so easy, can teenagers do? So we got two group tests for ages 12 through 17, and we did the methodology. We put them through the expedition, and every single teenager bought a property.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
How cool is that? I love it, man. Well, I'm really happy that we met. I'm really happy that we got a chance to know each other a little bit here during this conversation. And I hope that we continue to talk. And I want to learn more about what you're working on out there. But for anybody who's listening out there, reach out to Marcos if you're interested in tax deeds and tax liens. There's lots of different strategies out there. And I know that, shiny object syndrome is what a lot of us have. I know I do. But you should definitely look into this. So, send Marcos a message, join his community, join his next master class, and get involved. Right, seems like a really low barrier to entry type strategy that you can get started with right out of the gates, and it doesn't have a lot of the complexities that the other strategies that are out there do. So, thank you so much for taking the time, man. I really appreciate you, sharing and pouring into our audience and telling us about yourself and, where you came from. And it's all super fun and exciting. I can't wait.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for the opportunity. Just on the footnote, I'm not in the business of tax liens, teaching tax liens and tax deeds. I'm in the business of helping people rewrite their story. The same way I was able to rewrite my story from a truck driver to a multimillionaire. And was the second thing that I got from Tony that helped me pivot my business is understanding that tax liens and tax deeds is just a vehicle, right? A lot of times we have enough vehicles already, but we don't have a direction. And the direction should be, how can I rewrite my story? And if everybody that's listening to this right now, wake up tomorrow with that question, how can I rewrite my story? You're going to find your vehicle. Maybe it's not tax liens, tax deeds. Maybe it's crypto. Maybe it's wholesaling. Maybe it's you're going to start your own business. Maybe you're going to start your trash can moving to the curbside business. I don't know
Right.
what that is. But the idea is wake up tomorrow, number one, knowing that it's possible to rewrite your story. Once you know that, you're going to ask the question, how can I rewrite my story? And then the solutions and the vehicles are going to show up. And if it's me that's going to have the opportunity to serve you, that's going to be a pleasure. You're more than welcome. Only thing I can tell you, I'm going to put 100% of myself to perhaps, transform you into a deed hunter, which is a lot of fun.
Oh, man. Well, thanks again, Marcos, for your time. For anybody who's listening to this podcast, please like, follow, and share it. And keep an eye out for future episodes where we talk about entrepreneurship and business and real estate investing. But until then, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
Thank you.
That's a wrap on today's Real Estate Revelations. Thank you for tuning into the REI Hacker Podcast. Remember, every property has a story, and every deal is a lesson. Until next time, keep hacking the real estate world.